These are a very specifically built set of earphones that have been made keeping the athlete in mind and have been catered toward them. These are the Yamaha TW-ES5A. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. These earphones have got to be the most specifically built set of earphones that I've ever reviewed. So much so, there's something about the way these sound that didn't make any sense to me when I first listened to them until I put myself in the shoes of an athlete. But before I get into the details of how these sound, thank you to Yamaha for sending me this demo unit and making this review possible. All thoughts and opinions are my own, so let's jump straight in with their build. The unboxing experience on these is the same as the last three earphones that I reviewed. There is no discrimination between the lower end earphones or the higher end ones. After opening the box, you get the earphones in their case wrapped in a fabric cloth to protect it from scuffs and scratches during transport. Above it, you open a section that's holding a USB-C charging cable, extra ear tips and winglets to help with a better seal and fit. You get extra small, medium on the earphones, large and extra large ear tips to ensure a good seal, and you also get extra small, medium on the earphones and large winglets as well for a secure fit. Below it, you get another box that holds all the literature. The case you get has a very different design to what I've seen in the market. It's shaped like a boat's hull, making it easy to hold in your palm. It's got the Yamaha logo and name etched into the top lid and has a USB-C charging point behind it. It comes with a matte finish which might show off soft scratches over time. There are 4 LED lights in the middle to show you how much charge is held by the case, and this case isn't exactly compact but isn't meant to be in your pocket. It would most likely be in your gym bag majority of the time, and much like the other Yamaha earphones, they don't switch on when you open the lid. You have to take them out to switch them on. The earphones have a glossy faceplate with a hard plastic housing that looks like a rubber-like finish and has tactile buttons to interact with your music instead of a fidgety touch control option. This is a better way to interact with your earphones, especially if you're using them during physical activities. These have an IPX7 rating, which means you can be playing ball in the heaviest of showers, and these should hold up just fine. In fact, they've maintained a mesh much like the other earphones that will let sound get to you without any compromise. But this makes you wonder about water going in. To make sure the inner components don't get damaged, the driver itself is made out of a waterproof material and ensures that no water gets past it. Despite being as large looking as they are, they weigh in at 7.9 grams each, but you never really feel any weight from these because the weight is distributed well between the ear tip and the winglets and are actually quite comfortable once you figure out which winglets and ear tips are for you. These are more than certainly the most secure feeling earphones I've worn and won't pop out while you're running or practicing any high intensity sports. The soft yet firm winglets contribute to its secure fit, and these earphones remain more than comfortable to keep on for a few hours once you figure out which ear tips and winglets are for you. These come with Bluetooth version 5.2, have voice assistant support, and much like the E5B, do not have active noise cancelling. But its passive isolation is actually quite good. And you also get tactile buttons to interact with your media. Operating the functions on the buttons are pretty straightforward. One press on the left buds button will play or pause your music. 2 presses will let you cycle between the ambient sound mode or having it off. Moving on to the right bud, one press on the upper button will reduce the volume, and a double press will skip to the previous track, while the lower button will increase your volume with a single press and go to the next track with a double press. Pressing and holding the same button for a little over a second will initiate the voice assistant as well. These come with an auto play and pause feature thanks to having a proximity sensor built within each earphone, which you can put off in the app if you don't want to use it. The app this uses is the Yamaha headphone control app and doesn't have much going on in it, much like it operates with the other Yamaha earphones. This is Yamaha's way of not letting you get distracted with too many features to fiddle with. It shows you each earbud's battery percentage and has a manual EQ and a few presets you can choose from to tweak its sound a bit. I'll speak about this in the chapter about sound. The ambient sound mode works as it should by letting in sound through the earphones if you want to interact with someone nearby. Then you get a listening care feature which is standard across all Yamaha earphones and headphones. It's made to elevate the frequencies we can't perceive at lower volumes like highs and lows, so you never really have to raise the volume too high to get a balanced sound. You also get a gaming mode which improves the latency period for when you're consuming video or gaming, but it's bound to reduce your overall battery life if it's left on all the time. Passive isolation on these is pretty good, much like the other Yamaha earphones I've tested. Now, it does manage to cut out a lot of the highs and mid frequencies, but lower rumbles do tend to come in, and it is expected. But one thing I did notice about these when I was walking with them or running up the stairs These seem to address tunneling to a certain extent. Tunneling is something you usually notice when you block your ears, be it with earphones or earplugs or even with your fingers, and you start walking across the floor or even running or running up some stairs. Every time your heel impacts or the ball of your foot impacts on a surface, there's a certain amount of vibrations that are carried through your bones and your muscles that will resonate in your ear canal when it's blocked. I did swap with some other earphones I do have and I have been reviewing over the past year, and these certainly do drop down that tunneling effect. Now it turns out that Yamaha has made sure that they've balanced out all the components really well within this chamber. So there are no unnecessary resonances that will amplify in this kind of setting. So I'd say if the earphones that I was using, which are a little more budget, let's say if the tunneling effect was 100% with those when I was walking, this one drops it down to a good maybe 60% of what that was. So there is a considerable dip when you're doing that, and I think this will definitely benefit a lot of athletes who find this specific thing to be a bit disturbing. These come with 2 microphones per earbud, which contribute towards the noise coming in whenever your ambient mode is on. These same microphones are used for the environmental noise cancelling whenever you're on a run and you need to take any phone calls. These also come with Qualcomm's CVC or Clear Voice Capture technology, which should help isolate your voice over the environmental noise around you. And much like the other Yamaha earphones except the E3Bs, this one's conduit leading towards the call circuit is wrapped in a silicone tubing so as to reduce the resonance from your voice leading towards it, and these use MEMS microphones which are used by many other high-end brands. But if you want to see how your recipient would hear you in a real-world setting, there really is only one way to test this out. So I'm calling from the busy street that I normally do these call tests from, just to give you a sense of how much noise these earphones are going to be battling with, because today, in fact, there's a lot more traffic than there will be, so it's quite busy. So these are going to be dealing with a lot. Now, a situation like this will obviously occur if you're out and running, and you'll want to see how your voice carries over to your recipient. So I've been on the camera microphone all this time, and I'll shift over to the ES5A microphone right about now. So now one of the things I do with these is if they do have active noise cancelling, I toggle between the ANC, transparency and off mode just to see if there's a load on the algorithm where it fits, because some earphones do that. Now this doesn't have ANC, but it does have an ambient mode, and one thing I tried out was to see if it switches over to the ambient mode. The E7B did that. It shifted over from ANC to ambient to off. But these earphones, much like the E5B, they don't switch over to the ambient mode at all when you're in a call. It only functions when you're off of a call. Now, this is obviously a worst case situation when it comes to the environment. Now, if you are running in a place in a quiet park that's not as noisy as this, it will definitely do a better job than it is doing now. For that matter, if you decide to use these at home, in your bedroom or in your office, it's definitely going to perform significantly better than this. Now, since I can't toggle between the ambient modes, what I will do is I'll drop one earbud into the case. So the left earphone is back in the case, and right now only this right earphone is operating and dealing with the noise. So I'm not too sure if this will do any better or any worse, but you'll be the best judge because you're sitting in the reviewer's seat. And I do hope that this demo has given you a better understanding about these earphones. And of course, I will see you back in the studio. These come with a 6mm dynamic driver, and it's made out of the same material that the E7B's driver is made out of, which is a hardened polyurethane material to help with longevity and stiffness. These come with one acoustic tuning port per earbud despite having an IPX7 rating. This has allowed them to tune the airflow in the best possible way for this design, and it has in fact benefited in the way these image and stage. And these support SBC, AAC and aptX codecs, and they also have a frequency response of 20 Hz all the way up to 20,000 Hz. On a volume front, these benefit a lot from the listening care feature. Now, with a lot of other earphones, I normally test them between 55 and 60%. With these, I've not had to go beyond 50. So I've been between 35 and 50%, much like I've been with the other Yamaha earphones. And low down, even at 5% to 10%, it does stay rounded because of the emphasis in the higher and lower range. Now, one thing to keep in mind is listening care does tend to roll off. I think the algorithm that's working this starts rolling off at around 50% because there's no real need to emphasize highs and lows once you're amping it that much. Soundstage is where these start getting a little interesting because thanks to that little tuning port, these give the illusion of tones coming at you from a little out of the earphones more often than not. But more than the left and right channel, it's the phantom channel, because when I first heard this, I thought there was something wrong with the earphones, because I'm pretty used to listening to my phantom channel dead center. This one's phantom channel seems to exist on a slightly wider plane because it's sort of spread between my eyes, so it's not bang dead center between my eyebrows like every other earphone or headphone is. But it turns out Yamaha has done this intentionally for the sportsman because they want to make sure they don't interfere with your focus. In fact, one thing I did notice with this while I was writing my script for this is, usually when I'm writing everything from the build and features and so on, I don't like to have the earphones on because I'm focusing on what I want to write. But when I had these on, it wasn't really interfering with my focus, so I actually had these on throughout the entire script. But I can see why Yamaha has done this, because if you're playing table tennis or you're shooting a few hoops, you obviously don't want your focus point to be distracted, and this doesn't distract it. It does let you focus in on what you're doing. Now, this is a very interesting thing to do, and I'm really happy that a company like Yamaha is trying new things, because everybody's gotten so caught up in the way things are. There's no real innovation going on. So I don't know if this will catch on, but I guess only time will tell if we have more sportsmen who pick these up and experience them and let us know about their experiences. On an imaging front, these do image well. In fact, they do image a lot like the E5B do, but they're not as pristine, in the sense they're not as distracting, they're not as razor sharp. I think it's been intentionally done so it doesn't pull you away from what you're doing. But having said that, it's still fairly easy to zone into any nuances you want to, whether you're listening to music for inspiration or a speech for your training sessions. High frequencies may not be as accentuated as the E5B or E7B, but they come to you with a focused approach without being too forward. These don't get fatiguing over longer listening sessions, and you can listen to this frequency range until the batteries die. It handles this range with a subtlety that gives you more than enough detail without being obnoxious, which some sports earphones can do. Listening to Fleetwood Mac's Landslide, the plucking on the guitar comes through cleanly and soft enough to want to listen to this track on loop a few times before going onward to another track. The combination of how this range is tuned and the way these image can make you feel like you're playing the guitar yourself. Mid frequencies seem to take more importance than the E5B here, with a more rounded and more expressive presentation. Male and female vocals have a slight forward approach, making me think that these would be great for listening to motivational speech while you're out on your exercise time. Listening to Players' Baby Come Back, everything from the primary vocal track to the harmonizing comes through well defined and energetic in its delivery. A big reason why the vocals stay as clean as they are is because the lower frequencies aren't as exaggerated, thanks to Yamaha wanting to retain a trueness in their approach towards audio. And speaking about the lower frequencies, here's where I wish Yamaha broke away from their quest for trueness in sound, because I think a lot of athletes would prefer a lot more kick in this range. These handle lower frequencies well if you like a more natural or neutral delivery in this range, but if you prefer a little extra bass that you'd like to almost feel in your chest, this sadly won't do that. It extends to lower frequencies with ease, but lacks the punch I see people wanting to hear when they've got large amounts of adrenaline pumping in their veins. It handles EDM without a problem. It's just not as full-bodied or as tight as I'd like it in a physical training kind of situation. If you prefer genres like rock or metal, these certainly won't disappoint there. Listening to something just like this by the Chainsmokers and Coldplay, it's not missing out on any lows really. It hits all the notes well, but isn't as enthusiastic about hitting them as I think a lot of people will prefer. Now, to a certain extent, you can emphasize the bass by tweaking the EQ a bit. In fact, I found that if you stick to the energy EQ and tweak it slightly, it does give the bass a lot more body. And speaking about the EQ, you do get a 5-band EQ that you can tweak manually. It has a +3 and a -3 dB level for each band, so it will stay clear of getting distorted. But you also do get 5 other presets, which are energy. It helps with the bass push for certain, but doesn't tighten things up as much as I'd hoped for. You can tweak these presets as well. By lowering the mids in this setting a bit, it helps pronounce the bass a bit more, which I think most people will do when listening to these while training. Then you get gentle. It does soften things up a little compared to the previous EQ and also helps the bass response as well. Vocal elevates the mid-range and gets close to being sibilant but never really gets there. The bass drop off is significant with this preset, but if you tweak the lower frequency band, it can make this preset quite enjoyable without eating into the mids. Then you get groove, which makes things a little more lively but gives the sense of being a bit boxy sounding. Pulling the mids down helps get rid of that. And the last preset you get is openness, which elevates the highs that make reverb sound a lot more prominent, giving you the illusion of being a little more open. Then you get 2 user profiles you can customize and save your own settings in with the manual setting for the EQ. So to sum up, when it comes to its build is pretty rock solid. Its case reminds me a lot of the E5B's case, but the build of the earphones is definitely IPX7 rating. You can tell it's sealed really tightly. I don't think that you're going to have any seal breakthrough problems for quite a while using these earphones. And I quite like the design of these. It's quite different from the other Yamaha earphones, but it's also quite different from the usual stem designs you get. So it's nice to see that they're doing something different. Comfort with these is something that I was pleasantly surprised with, because I've usually associated sports earphones with discomfort, because usually I think the older earphones that I used that was sports oriented, the winglets or the ear tips were a little too hard and it was an unpleasant experience. 20 to 30 minutes tops is what you could do with those, at least what I could do now. With this, I did get the feeling that they were going that way, because I remember when I first used them, I just took them straight out of the box and started testing them. And a few minutes later, maybe 20 or 30 minutes after, my ears did start hurting, and that's when I figured it was time to sit and figure out which ear tip was the right size and which winglet as well. Now, this task can seem a little bit tedious to begin with, but it's a one-time thing. Once you figure out what your winglet and ear tip size is, these things sit in your ears absolutely securely. I don't think I've worn any earphones that are as secure as these, because some earphones do give you the illusion of, or the sensation that they're about to pop off. Not these. These are held in pretty tight. Now, one thing I like on a feature front is that Yamaha has stuck to keeping tactile buttons on all of their earphones. So the fact that these are sports earphones just reinforces that, because you don't want to be fiddling with swipes or taps or all sorts of weird gestures while you're focusing on a certain task, or if you're playing a game, or even if you're just training. So these are fairly straightforward. There are just 3 buttons. You don't have to fiddle too much with these. Now, the app is very basic, but it's much like every other Yamaha earphones, except for the 3Bs, I think. So this lets you do all the little stuff you need to do. It's more than enough. I don't think Yamaha has wanted people to get too fiddly with their apps, because then you are pulled away from the content you're absorbing really. So this helps you stay connected to your content and your activities. On a sound front, when I first started listening to these, I didn't think that these made any sense, because they were a set of earphones that were trying to take up the space that the E5B already existed in. But the E5B, I mean, it can be used as a set of sports earphones, but you don't get a secure fit with the winglets, and it doesn't have an IPX7 rating. So what I did do is I did do a little bit of A/B testing between the 2 earphones just to see if there was a difference. And one thing I'm happy to say is that Yamaha did not stick to their quest for trueness of sound with these as obsessively, because there is certainly a lot more heft in the bass with these compared to the E5B. So I'd say they've certainly kept the athlete in mind while tuning these. Now, I think it'll take some time getting used to these earphones if you're used to listening to a lot of other earphones or headphones, because that phantom channel thing is a bit weird. In fact, it threw me off when I first heard these. I was genuinely convinced that there was something wrong until I found out that they've deliberately done this. Now, it's not that they are only built for sports. You can use them on a regular basis. In fact, the bass factor and the roundedness of vocals that I thought that the E5B didn't have, these get very well. Now, these won't image as accurately and be as sharp in the highs as the E5B, because they don't want to be a distraction to you when you're listening to them. But I found it to be a very nice set of earphones to use while you're walking around the house and doing certain chores, or I certainly see it working well as an athlete set of earphones. Now, would I want a lot more bass from these earphones? Not really, because I do prefer this kind of sound signature. I mean, I've never liked exaggerated tones, and this works perfectly fine for me. Now, if you are a bass enthusiast, these will definitely not work out for you. These are pointed in the direction of trueness of sound to aid you while you're doing your physical activity. The one thing that they really do well, I think, compared to the other earphones I've tried out, is the tunneling factor. Yamaha, I think, has just constructed these in such a way where it doesn't emphasize the tunneling factor. So it's not that it's eradicated completely, it is reduced significantly compared to some other earphones that I've used, and it certainly helps in reducing that thumping distraction whenever you're running. So if you're an athlete who wants a trueness in sound and you don't want your focus being distracted, I think these could be a good set of earphones to have, because the tunneling thing is a good point. It doesn't have very shrill highs that will distract you. Its phantom channel is split across, so it doesn't distract your focus point. So it is a very interesting set of earphones. So now, if you are interested in buying this, now Yamaha has recently launched these. So right now it should be available on the Yamaha website, but they will be expanding to Amazon and so on. So at the time of recording this, what are they priced at? They are going for an MRP of 15,700 on the Yamaha website. But By the time this goes live, it should have expanded onto Amazon as well. So I'll leave both their links down in the description below. Now, do I think these are worth it at that price? Now, for one, it's not a regular set of earphones, because all these factors that they've addressed for the athlete, I've not really seen in other sports earphones, because other sports earphones are just made to be more battery or better security. They've not addressed things like tunneling, or this phantom thing is definitely something I've never heard of or seen in any other set of earphones. So the fact that they're doing something new, I think it's definitely worth spending this kind of money if you want to experience that. And these are not short-term earphones. I'm pretty sure that they're long-term. Yamaha does offer a standard 1-year warranty on all their products here in India, and they do have service centers across the country as well. So I wouldn't really worry about having any issues with these, especially the fact that they're sealed with an IPX7 rating. These things are definitely going to last a very long time before anything goes wrong. So if you're still here, I presume you like the content on my channel, and if you would like to support it, I'm sure you know exactly how to. I do hope I've helped you make some sort of purchase decision, but of course, thank you for tuning to Paul's POV for some sound advice.